your own control. Politicians and celebrities make deals behind closed doors, promises broken, and their income source. Hidden agendas run the grand parade. In the circus, choose a masquerade. Believe me, I wouldn't lie. I've been given money, power, and fame to keep you in line.
Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to be going over one of those Jubilee sessions where Candace Owens is debating, like little mini debates with a bunch of feminists, and she was pregnant at the time, but I do not know if she did very well. I've been hearing a lot about how she did not do very well. I saw a few clips, but I didn't want to watch all of them. And I know like there's one creator that I also follow that is, I don't know if she's a feminist or what she is. She's just one of those, I guess, like philosopher type ladies that just likes to say this is how things are and whatever. She's, I don't know. She's an interesting person to watch. I thought in the beginning that she just didn't like men, and then she kind of flipped it to like telling women how they're doing things wrong. So she's kind of fair in that part, that she does kind of like attack both pretty equally. She's like, this is what the women are doing wrong. They're not accepting the reality of the world and they're trying to change it. And then she flips it like, this is what, the men are doing wrong and blah, 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 blah. So I think that's pretty fair. In the beginning, she was only going against men. And I think this is just my outside opinion. I think that when she started dating women, she realized, no, the ladies have it wrong too. Everybody's pretty much wrong. Nobody's doing very well out here. So she's like giving her a take on everything. And it's very interesting. She also did, which I wanted to review one time, maybe in the future. She did an interview with Rabbi Mantis, and they were talking about the nature of men and women and relationships and everything. And it was so fascinating to watch. And I think she has a really good grasp on things, and he does too. And I love him. So them together was awesome. And, I always kind of secretly said, what if we could, the dream would be Priscilla, the Queen Maker, Candace Owens, and Shira 7, the sprinkle lady, get these three very opposing dynamic women in a room and just have them go at it. Please, Lord, hear me out. I need this to happen. That would be the most interesting and entertaining debate for all of us to kind of like watch concerning like the women in the space. Like, these are the three top women that I like to listen to, just to hear like the complete different spheres of thought out there. Because if you're a woman, you either go for like the Candace style, whatever. I mean, we don't really have a feminine trad influencer that like I really know of, like not that's very prominent out there. There's been some that kind of like they're still like boss babe trads, right? So like Candace, I would consider like a boss babe trad. Like, I make money. I'm not going to stop working just because I have a family and blah, blah, blah. But you should stay home with your kids because you're broke. It's like, what? So, I mean, everybody is kind of like a feminist online, in my opinion, a little bit for working. As soon as I see them like get off the internet, I'm like, okay, maybe they're not so much, at least anymore. But then we have nobody to speak for actual, like, I mean, actual trad, not feminist. There's really not anyone. Maybe if you go to like homesteading type spaces, but I don't feel like they talk about relationships. So does that even count? And who knows? Like, who knows? So, yeah. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to look at a few, not the whole thing, because that's crazy. And I'm looking at from the account of the Queen Maker, because she also gives her commentary, which gives like a whole nother insight. And I don't know, her style of speaking is like crazy. And she's very, so you guys will like it. Let's see. Here we go. So I'm skipping a few people that I didn't personally find very interesting. So like apologies if that's any of you guys or your friends, but I'm just going to like a few key people. I mean, chivalry as a form of feminism? No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see how that is, but you know what? It just doesn't matter. Like at this point, look, whatever we do, we're doing the best we can, guys. I don't think there is a right or wrong way to be anymore. We're trying to figure it out. So we shall see. All right. So, yeah, all women, I would say nowadays, are at least a little bit feminist. A little bit. All right.
Joy and fulfillment as raising children.
Okay.
No career. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Candace. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm John. Okay, so I feel like a lot of your arguments today are very rooted in a sort of old school perspective. I have to be honest. Like, I think, and I'm not trying to be insulting whatsoever, I feel as though most people would identify that claim as pretty extreme and pretty like,
Children are extreme.
well, no, that women would get more happiness inherently from raising kids than having a job or deciding what they want to do with their lives.
Why is that? I'm just curious. Why would having children, which is just a natural biological conclusion, be something?
But biology does not produce happiness. As a matter of fact, it's proven that people who seek pleasures are the most unhappy, because happiness is not a biological trait. As a matter of fact, when you go in line with nature, you're more likely to suffer from anger, grief, regret, jealousy, competition, all of that. People out here having all these babies are stressed out. Biological nature just say you're supposed to reproduce and survive. And when you reproduce and survive, you are not in happiness. Survival is not a state of happiness. And when women get babies, the more they have, the more it drains their energy and the more it drags them down into survival.
Okay, so just to like piggyback on what she's saying, there is truth to everything she's saying. And Candace, for Candace and other privileged, wealthy women that can easily afford multiple children, multiple, nannies, multiple, what's it called? What's the other, like, I don't know. And they have like basically support because they can afford support. For these women, having lots of kids is amazing. It's wonderful. But for the women who cannot afford any of these luxuries, are worried if they can afford to put their kid through school, are working long hours, like maybe like the husband and the wife have to both work 18-hour shifts to survive, which is a lot of people that I know, unfortunately, and the kids are basically neglected all day. And then there is a resentment for these stressed out working parents against their own children, which we don't like to talk about because it looks bad on both men and women that they would resent their own children. But when society becomes with hyperinflation, with you can't afford anything, schools becoming more expensive, there's income instability, we don't know what to encourage our children to study in schools because of AI coming in. So we have all this uncertainty, all this anxiety, all wars, everything, like it's a lot for the human mind to comprehend. And the amount of information coming in and it's negative information from the internet, which we didn't have before, from all the types of media, which we didn't have before, and just the nature of how society is now with constant negative information, because people pay attention to negative information because negative information lights up all of your body. All your systems get heightened up, ready to attack. So as humans, when we're in this constant state of fight or flight, I have to attack, but you are not able to move because you are not in control of these situations. We're not in control if they release bombs in another country or here. We're not in control if inflation continues and there's no jobs. We're not in control of the government, basically. Maybe we think we are, but we're really not. We're not in control of how money works, if our money is in the bank becoming worthless, if our 401ks are becoming worthless, if we're going to be able to retire. We're not in control of these things the way we want to be, right? And with all of this uncertainty, and I see a lot of friends now, they're losing their jobs because of AI, because they're able to fire a whole department and replace it with an AI. And there's a lot of stress on families. So does having a kid in this time make you happy if you are one of those people who are in a very uncertain situation? No. But Candace, who is very, very blessed, and me, who was very, very blessed, people who are very, very blessed are going to not have the amount of stress that the average American family will have. And I'm not even talking about single mothers or anything. I'm just talking about married couples that are generally like happy with each other with kids. They're under tons of stress. So I am seeing that children are not like for everybody in every situation making life easier. Like if you're not sure if you're going to be able to pay the bills next month, and then you have a screaming child to also take care of, that's not going to make you like your child. And that is a sad fact. But in the animal kingdom, if like there's these cute little animals in Australia where if a predator is coming and they feel threatened, they will literally throw their babies at the predator so that they can run away. And I'm trying to think, like, is that what humans are doing here when they're under so much stress, so much threat? They don't know what is happening. And this is not saying, be feminist, be conservative or anything like that. This is just saying we are in a heightened state of stress in this country and uncertainty and stress, income instability, not even having a path to success like we used to have. Before, you used to just get a job in a corporation, you'd get a pension, they would take care of you, you had a retirement. I have people that I know, like elderly people, who are getting kicked out of Social Security and everything. And it's just like, what is going on? And it's because all of these services have been bankrupt and they're just kind of kicking out people that they feel like won't fight back. And this is just happening across the board. We are running out of money for all of these social services. What we should have done is not gotten rid of pensions. Pensions were the gold standard. Your company would basically incentivize you to stick with them your entire life, so you wouldn't be constantly stressed out, like having to find another job every 2 years like now. This is ridiculous, to have to find another job every 2 years because you know that if you stay in your company, you will never get a promotion, is wild. And the amount of people who have the skill level, education level, the health, physical and mental health to be able to demand more money is lower and lower with the more stress that we are under as a society. And this is kind of spreading as the whole, the woke and the feminist agenda kind of spreads. Everybody else is getting more anxiety all over the world. So there's not going to be many places to run. And the reality is, if housing is more affordable, people will own a piece of their community. And when you own a piece of community, that's when you care about the community. When people cannot own a piece of the community, they don't care about it. Just like think about like a renter versus an owner. Very few renters are going to paint and decorate and maintain the landscaping and plant better trees and whatever. Like, they're not going to beautify and spend their money on somebody else's property. And when most people cannot own, that's what we get. We have a renter mentality. We have a temporary mentality. And people who are in a temporary mindset can't think about the future. It's not that they would be more happy if they had kids or if they wouldn't be more happy. It's you have to first have the ability to go, yes, in 5 years, I see myself still being able to afford the extra bedroom for each kid or whatever. So, like, we have to think about these things because it's easy to say, well, I mean, look, okay, this is your opinion. I do think that the whole income thing does matter. It matters that people are stressed out about whether or not they have a stake in the pie. So, anyways, let's continue and see what she says.
Right? The majority of women with children are walking around in fight or flight. Fight or flight is not a state of happiness. You're on the verge of an imminent breakdown if you stay in that zone. Staying at home and constantly being bombarded with children is guaranteed to keep you in that zone. That's not happiness.
Okay, so again, remember the whole nuclear family, that's a brand new idea. We were never supposed, women are not solitary creatures. They need social interaction, which is why, as she's saying, they seem more happier or they feel more happier when they go to work, because we used to have a community at home with all the women in the community, in the neighborhood, home. So if all the women in the community are home and they're all talking, making sure everything is going well in the community, petitioning the government for more city parks, more city services, taking care of the poor, they're able to take care of the elderly couple down the way and see if they need anything, right? They were a part of a community. They were not isolated in a single family house. This is the other big thing, right? You cannot say that this is normal and women should be happy in a single family house, isolated and alone, because women are not solitary creatures. You put any animal in a cage without the community, they become insane. So that's why all the women are on antidepressants. Whether or not they're working or they're not working, they don't have the community. Just going to work, talking to a few people might feel a little better than being at home just talking to children, right? If they're even able to talk yet, if they're old enough to talk yet, or nobody. That's not the same. That's not what women are designed to do. Women are designed to gossip. That's how they know if they're safe, where their social standing is. And of course, social standing equals your cortisol level. Unfortunately, we're animals. So if she doesn't know she doesn't even have a social life, there's no social standing, there's no safety, there's no nothing. So she's in chaos, right? And for men, they're very easy to compartmentalize. This is home, this is work, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so much easier for them that they don't understand the chaos of the female mind, that it needs to have community. And the community must be stable and supportive. This is why if a woman has, let's say, like an evil mother-in-law that's very nosy into the thing, she's going to have a mental breakdown because the stress is too much. She needs the community to embrace her. And just like they say, like, if a child is not embraced by the community, he'll burn it all down. The same thing with women. Like, you need a community. So isolation is not okay for females. They cannot isolate. They're not single task focused. They can't do that. They need constant mental stimulation. They need to constantly see where they are in society. That's just normal. And yes, we should be in like plots of land with multiple family members having their own house in the same big plot of land so that we can communally raise our children, have grandparents and great grandparents nearby to help with things, to be supporting for the children. That way, if your parents were fighting, you could go to grandma and grandpa or auntie and uncle or, your older cousins or whatever, because they'd be right there in walking distance. Now these isolated people go insane, and then we yell at them saying, you should be happy because you get to be isolated. That's like telling a rat in a cage with just 6 kids that it should be happy. That's not how rats are designed to live. We are a community species.
You don't know what you're supposed to do.
Let me wait for this to end. Stupid. Okay.
Something that sounds extreme.
I just said inherently.
Well,
Inherently.
inherently.
That's the inherent
extreme.
expectation.
Yeah.
That's better for
It's inherent because it's biological. So I think when we think about things that are inherent, I think biology is a good thing to start with, right? So biologically speaking, men and women come together, they form families, and that's the reason why you're sitting here. That's the reason that I'm sitting here, is because biology is inherent.
Well,
so
I was
saying
told-
it's just natural order that we're speaking about, right?
Okay, let's break it down. So why do you believe that? Why do you believe that?
Why do I believe that?
Why do you inherently are happier? Yeah.
You keep stressing this word inherent. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I think because it speaks to natural order and
I just want to say this dude's a little bit like, not a little bit, let's just say he's a little high on the narcissism. He's a little grandiose. He's a little full of himself. The tone, the body language, everything. It's very annoying. I'm not saying that Candace is not a little narcissistic. I mean, everybody, I guess, online with big following, big personality can get a little bit, but he is just like clinical speaking a little bit like
every
more.
piece of life.
This argument could totally be torn down because happiness is not biological. Survival and reproduction is. And reproduction keeps you in a survival state, which is in direct opposition of happiness.
Okay, let's move on to somebody else. Okay, remember this chick. Here.
Designed for happiness. Do you think the animals in the wild are happy? They stressed out every day. And you all would be even more stressed out if the system wasn't set up like this. The majority of y'all wouldn't even make it. You too weak. You too weak. The wild is stressful, ma'am. Nature is brutal and ruthless. So nature don't give a damn about no happiness. Nature cares about survival and reproduction. So I don't understand your argument on happiness in connection with biology. I just don't.
Men and the patriarchy, because it's actually oppressed them just as much as women now emotionally, right? Because when we're kids, our parents teach us how to cross the street, look both ways so you can get the other side unharmed. When a boy comes across a feeling, and I'm using men and boys here because they're the ones suffering, women are too, but emotionally, when they come across a feeling they haven't felt before, we have to teach them how to get to the other side and cope with it. Otherwise, they stay where they are. That anger and resentment builds. That's the feeling they become most comfortable with. That's the feeling they go to first in most situations.
Right,
so we need to stop telling our boys that they don't cry, because they do. They just do it alone, and then they become even more alone.
All right. Jasmine,
nice to meet you.
Okay, so you say that women are more fulfilled at home with kids than going out into the workforce or getting educated, but that just really doesn't bear out when you look at the stats, when you look at how working mothers are way less likely to be in poverty. Maternal education is the #1 predictor of childhood outcomes, better scores, getting higher incomes in the future.
You would think that was common sense, though, because the mother is the first teacher of the child. And if you got a dumb mama, you definitely gonna have a dumb child. Can't you look around and see? Look, who having the kids? Dumb people. Dumb people having all the kids. And look at them. And we want more dumb people by telling the women not to be educated. Very smart.
There are fewer behavioral problems, better mental health. So it's weird to me and college educated women are least likely to get divorced. And they're the only women, the top 10% of women are the only women whose marriage rates are going up. So they're getting married, they're staying married, and their kids are doing better. When you look at stay-at-home mothers, you see that they're more likely to report being depressed. They're more likely to report having anxiety.
Bro, why is he so pissed off at me? I didn't do anything. I feel like I'm an integral part of the chat, but whatever.
I tell you what, when I was a stay-at-home mother, I was depressed. I would never do that.
anger and all these types of things. So how can you say that? Seems like a woman, if you want to get married and have kids, you should go to college and have a career.
So it sounds to me like we are looking at totally different statistics, because everything that you said, I've actually read the exact opposite.
I'm glad we're on a fact check show with you.
Right, exactly.
Oh, it's so exciting.
That's going to be amazing. Okay. Because I know, like I said, I think what we're talking about is that there was this widespread report on female happiness, and I know that it was formally debunked, and it was.
That's not what I'm talking about. Pew Research,
Right.
University of California. In fact, working mothers today spend more time with their children than women did in the 1960s that were at home.
Okay, well, women that are at home are obviously spending more time with their children than the people who are at work.
And their
today.
children are not faring off any better.
Quality over quantity. So if you're at the house all the time, if you're around somebody all the time, guess what? The quality of your appearance or your stay is not going to be good. It's just not. So a lot of times children like their fathers more because it's more quality time as opposed to quantity time.
Okay, I disagree with that because I don't think quantity equals no quality or no quantity equals quality. I just think like you can be with your kid all day and it be quality, or you can be with your kid less time and it can be quality. So it doesn't really matter. That I feel like there's no correlation with the amount of time or anything. What she's not addressing is attachment. So if you would like your child to be able to form attachments to people for long-term committed relationship in the future for the sake of your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, you have to give them good attachment in the first 7 years of their life. There needs to be either the mother, the father, or grandmother, primary caregiver with them all the time, the majority of the time, so that they are able to form solid attachments and they do not have attachment disorders. The problem with marriage now is because we have attachment disorders from daycare, preschool, all of these things, putting kids to school too early, not giving them that attachment. When you put a child in preschool, daycare, and they stop crying, they have lost the attachment bond with their primary caregiver, making it harder for them to securely attach to a partner later in life. This is not pseudoscience. We have known this for some time, but people who are working get very viscerally angry when you bring this up because they don't want it to be true. Right? But it is an inconvenient truth that we need to be bonded to a primary caregiver for the first 7 years of life in order to ever have successful relationships, right? Because what happens is the second you get into a fight, you think this person is going to leave me. You don't know that this person will come back. So you assume they're going to leave you, and then you start acting out. And when you start acting out, you might start fights. You might start cheating. You might start lying. You might start doing any sort of maladaptive behaviors because you feel threatened. And then you might start immediately detaching, like, I can't trust you. Just because the person says, maybe you should pick up your socks or something stupid. I'm serious with how little it takes if somebody has attachment issues to set them off, right? Or even like, looking at somebody else a minute too long or whatever. Anything can make an attached, anxiously or an avoidantly attached person freak out, right? The other things is a lot of times women are complaining about avoidantly attached men because avoidantly attached men, their parents, their primary caregivers basically said, I'm not going to give you emotional attachment because I'm busy. So you're not important enough. So basically it told the child, you are on your own in this world. And they either become anxious. Most women tend to become anxious, but most men tend to become avoidant. So like they will just avoid getting close to someone emotionally attached. And a lot of times this will show up with, I have to cheat. I have to have a poly relationship. I can't put all my eggs in one basket because I couldn't ever put it in a primary caregiver because they abandoned me. So in order for me to be safe, I can't trust anyone. In order for me to not trust anyone fully, I can't care about just one person. I mean, it sounds crazy, but when you think about it, it does make sense. And there are women who are like this too. This is not just men. There are also anxiously attached men. So it goes both ways. It depends on the nuances on which way you're going to go. So then these are also the men avoidant tend to be the most successful men because they're like, the world is dangerous. I'm alone. I have to make it in this world. So these are the men that will overwork, overstress themselves out, kill themselves to make lots of money and material wealth to feel safe. And they will never feel safe enough to stop overworking. So that's your workaholic guy. They're avoidant. Women like avoidance because they're like, they're not losers. They're out there getting it. So women want to be with avoidance. And that's when they say, oh, men are not emotionally mature or they don't share their feelings with me. They're talking about successful avoidant men are not connecting with them. Why? Because they can't, because their primary caregiver gave them up and told them it is not safe to trust anyone fully, to give yourself to someone emotionally. So they're not going to do that. So we can get into how to deal with avoidant attached people another time, but this is just an example that people don't like to mention because, again, it's inconvenient to admit that children need certain things. And just because the economy or, I don't want to be with this dude or whatever like excuses people have doesn't negate the fact that this is what children need to be successful. And if you're going to have children, you have to acknowledge this and be okay with doing what it takes to make them not end up avoidant or anxious.
Familiarity breeds contempt. So when women are around their kids all the time, a lot of them begin to resent the children because there's no space to actually be human. And it starts to come out on the kids. You would think this would make common sense. Like this is obvious, but it's
a big thing that happens is if the women cannot afford to have help or they don't have community support when they're with the children, they should not be alone with children. They should have adult community support to raise the children in tandem, which is how nature intended it. If they don't have that, they will resent their partner and their children or their children. They're going to resent somebody because either A, their children are, a burden, and or B, the husband is not able to give her a village. And nowadays, unfortunately, that village, like Candace's village, that's money, right? So she needs to pay for a cook. She needs to pay for a nanny. She needs to pay for a tutor. She needs to pay for all these people. She's paying for her village. Whereas us plebes, we can't afford to pay for a village. Our grandparents are ill. They are far away or whatever. Everybody's moved away from each other. Our cousins live in one country or whatever. Everybody is so spread out because this is an individualistic society. There is no community. So women are isolated and going mentally insane, just like a rat in a cage.
It's not. It's really not obvious.
And they're faring off worse.
How are you measuring their children faring off worse?
How likely they are to higher incomes, better scores, fewer health problems, fewer behavioral issues, and better mental.
So the just to get back to the claim that I'm making here is that it is obvious that women who have children are going to be more fulfilled.
How is
right?
that obvious? Because you said
that was good. What? How is it obvious? Because you said so. That's what it sounds like to me.
No, it's not obvious because I said so. It's because when you look at all the statistics in terms of women who are choosing not to have families, they are, as the person who just sat here before you mentioned, they are suffering from more depression. They're suffering from more anxiety. And
that's not true.
Okay, it is true. It is actually true that women who are choosing their career.
Recent data on this topic is scarce. But CDC data shows that from 2015 to 2018, women were more than twice as likely to take antidepressants than men, and antidepressant use was more common among those with college degrees. So, which women? College degrees and what other dynamics? Just the college degrees? Because I know it's several women that have reported to me after learning and studying from me that they got off antidepressants of each other.
You need a babysitter. You're already, you could retire right
You have
now.
to let people respond to you when they're speaking.
You don't want to.
to respond to you when
No,
I
you
speak?
don't want to. You want to be working, which is great.
You're telling me what I want now and then accusing me of telling you.
Wait, are,
Hold on. Hold the hell on, Candace. Stop right there. You've been telling people what they want for the last 39 minutes. And now when somebody tell you what you want, now you offended. How dare you? You're telling me what I want. And that's not fair. That's not how you do this, ma'am. For 39 minutes and 29 seconds, you've been sitting up here telling women what would make them more happy, despite what they telling you would make them more happy.
you don't want to work?
Can you just let me finish? Because you've said so many words that what you're trying to do here, like your argument style, is I'm going to say so much and not let her get a word.
Okay, so when someone complains about the argument style, that means they are in a pickle, they are losing. So, or the other person is insulting, which she's not insulting. She's literally making a point. So,
and then walk away and feel like I've won. We're not having a conversation because you've not letting me respond to even one of your points. Okay. What I am saying to you, first to answer what you just said, which was a lie, what I spoke to you about on the weekends is that it's been increasingly difficult to find a 25-year-old who even knows how to make boxed macaroni and cheese, right? And that's crazy. That is in large part due to feminism. Women don't even focus. Like there's this idea that women shouldn't be cooking. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with women even learning how to cook.
Are you
know what I mean?
spending as much time with your children as you possibly can? Because that's the way to get the most fulfillment.
No, and that's what I'm trying to say. I am speaking to you
So
as—
then stop.
Okay, could you please let somebody get in?
I did.
A word
I let you
edgewise?
finish.
You're not. You
I
actually
did.
have not let anybody finish. And like I said,
absolutely
it's no one benefits.
You can't listen. You can't have a conversation like that. You don't need to do all of this to be able to wrap somebody up. You can have a conversation. You can let somebody finish their point of view. You can.
When you're just speaking over me and not allowing me to respond. All you're proving is that you have an attitude and you believe in feminism, but you're not. See, that's what I'm saying. You just have an attitude, and it's not cute. It's performative.
I'm actually address my point. I will be quiet if you address my point.
Does anybody actually feel here that I am being allowed to address any of her points when she just keeps running over me? Like I'm literally trying to answer your first point of you saying that I don't stay at home.
Yeah,
fair point.
Really weird.
Fair point. Obviously, I get that you're all anti-Candace and pro-feminist, but also it's not productive if you're not actually—
Okay, address the point.
Okay, come on now. All right, come on. Shh.
Spend more time saying that I'm not addressing, that you don't have a chance to talk. I mean, the whole time you could have addressed the point. Okay. You could have talked.
I
go for it.
Just want you to know that you're not coming across as somebody who wants to actually have a conversation. So to get back to the claim, because I don't even know where you're at. You're now talking, you're saying that I said stuff in my podcast.
I'll go wherever you want to go.
I never said.
I'll go wherever
so do you want to start with me working at home? Because I work at home. You just said something about me working
you
at
travel
home.
all around the world.
Okay,
you do speeches, and I love that. I love how ambitious you are. That's a really great trait. And if you were truly said that, you would be more fulfilled. Now, one thing you do find is women, they don't want to stay at home when you pull them. They just want flexible working hours and flexible working conditions like you have. And I think we should all advocate for that. It's not one or the other. But when you sit here and you go, you'll be more fulfilled doing this and spend all your time doing that, we would love for you to leave the public eye and go focus on what makes you fulfilled.
Okay.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to—
oh boy. Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Not a patriarch.
All right. So here I come. Here I come. She say we live under a matriarchy and not a patriarchy. Then what she say? So here I go. This what y'all was all waiting for. Here we go.
Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Princella, the Queen Maker.
Love that.
So you say we live in a matriarchy.
Right.
Can you give me the definition of patriarchy?
Yes. Well, the patriarchy is the idea that the system, our system in America, is being run by men, and that women are having to exist under a system that immediately disadvantages them because men are behind it. And I disagree with that pointedly. I think actually we're living in a society where people are being very much influenced socially and politically by women.
Okay, so the denotative definition of patriarchy is father rule, and where positions of government are held majorly by men, where women are largely excluded. So 125 House of Representatives are female, and that's only about 25%.
Right.
And only about 28% make up Senate, and 3.3% of Congress up until this date have ever been women. So by denotative definition, we literally live in a patriarchy.
Yes.
All right. So, okay. I just gave you the denotative definition of the word patriarchy. You say we live in a matriarchy. Not only did I give you the definition of patriarchy, I gave you the statistics to go along with it. The fact of the matter is the government is ruled by majority male, and women are largely left out of those seats. That's what makes a patriarchy. So what we gonna disagree on? What we finna disagree on? Okay, we finna find out.
So I disagree with that. So I think what this gets to, which
Wait. That's a fact. Wait a minute. That is a fact that I just brought up. That is a fact. How you gonna disagree with a fact, Candace?
is actually an important part of the conversation, is that people always think that where there is disparity, there's somehow inequality. And I actually reject that entirely. I think it's just a difference in what we're interested in. I think we're biologically wired, we're interested in different careers. And just because if we looked in the fashion industry and said, oh, well, it's being dominated by women, it wouldn't mean that, okay, well, that means that the
Fashion industry is definitely dominated by gay men. Can we all agree on that? I mean, fashion industry, women, no, women are just the models because they're the one who buy the clothes.
fashion industry is a matriarchy and men have no sense. It just means have no ability to communicate how they feel in the fashion industry. I literally think that those numbers show that we're just biologically different. So I actually think politically, women have shown that they have a lot more power than men have. And I'm talking about just in terms of political movements. The most recent I can think of is the Me Too movement, right? If a bunch of women get together and complain about a man and refer to the patriarchy and scream, generally speaking, let me know if you agree, the media will celebrate that. If a bunch of men got together and were shrieking and speaking about women, generally speaking, the media would call them all white supremacists and say that we had a misogyny problem and that things were really wrong in society. Women are allowed to be more vocal in general about problems than men are.
Well, let me speak to that. When we're talking about government and media, these are two different things. So under the denotative definition of a patriarchy, by the percentages that are occupied in the government, which is majority male, defines us as a patriarchy. Now, what it comes to for capitalism, for marketing purposes and control, for capital and revenue, that is a totally different conversation. But who's making the laws? I don't think that women are the ones voting to have their reproductive rights taken away, where you have rape, incest, and all of these things excluded to force women to be able to have. I don't think women in government would largely vote against their own interests. All right. I said women in government. If we lived in a matriarchy, where women had control over the politics, I do not think that women would agree to have their reproductive rights trampled. Because you have to remember, that we live in a patriarchy, and by denotative definition, it is based on the positions occupied in government being majority male, where women are largely excluded. I don't think that if we had a matriarchy, that the women in those seats would vote against their own reproductive rights. That's what I'm saying.
I just want to say that not all women think that it's a right. So I don't really see her point in this. I don't know what Candace is going to say.
Because it's majority male, patriarchy.
Okay, I think love that point. Are women allowed to vote?
Oh, of course they are.
Who's voting that patriarchy, and then out of curiosity?
No, I totally agree. And you want to know why? Now, we went from talking about the people in the seats, because I said the women in government. She moves that conversation from the women in government to the populace, right? She moves it from the people occupying the seats to the populace. So now these are two different sets of people. So now I'm about to make commentary on the people that she's talking about. Because there are so many women who think like you submit to the idea of men ruling everything. And your ideology is spread across a lot of women who also falsely believe to vote against their own interests just to complain about it in the end. Earlier you said that, women would be much more happier working at home. But don't you agree that it's human nature to want things that you don't have? Mm-hmm. So during the 1950s, which is something that you constantly bring up, it wasn't until 1994 that it was legally illegal to beat your wife. And so what we're dealing with is, she is referring to the 1994 Violence Against Women Act, which provides protections at the federal level for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes, right? So you're asking me about the populace, about how women vote. But so many women think like Candace, the author of Make Him a Sandwich. There are so many women who are uneducated that think like Candace that are voting. These are not the people that I said that I was talking about in a quote unquote potential matriarchy, which is non-existent because we don't have majority female in the seats. That's why I say we don't live in a matriarchy. So now you start talking about the women that's voting now in a patriarchy. Well, now we got to go and talk about the mentality of the women in this day and age. And they think like you, Candace. They think like you, where they want a man to run everything, even the relationships at the house. But then it's these women that's complaining all over the internet when they get what they ask for. So it's human nature to say you want something, and then when you get it, the reality of it, you complain it. Ain't Candace Owens complaining right now after she got to sidestep her support of Trump? Ain't she complaining now? Y'all always do this.
I mean, she does have a point that no matter what you choose in this world, if it doesn't work out, you're going to always go, I should have chose the other one. If you pick the wrong wife, you're going to be like, I should have chose that other girl, even though she wasn't as cute. Or if you pick the wrong guy, I should have chosen the other guy, even though he wasn't as cute. I guess the same or whatever. It's just like everybody who makes a poor decision for their situation or the decision doesn't pan out well regrets it. Your happiness is not a reason to change policy. Just happiness is such a fleeting thing. People, especially like women, can mistake anxiety for love and romance. Anxiety, somebody who is inconsistent, somebody who gives and takes their love and kindness away back and forth, creates anxiety in the woman. And that pain, cortisol, she can mistake, if she grew up in trauma or something, for excitement. And she could give up a very stable, low cortisol, healthy, strong relationship to pursue something like that, because women and men, if they allow themselves to just go with what feels good at the moment, can choose things against their best interest. So the whole thing of Candace even mentioning happiness levels kind of got thrown in her face, because people mostly are never going to be happy. Doesn't matter. Like, even the richest people you can think of, some of them will be completely miserable when you meet them. Some of the most famous people will be completely miserable when you meet them. People are just not as they appear. And the people that you idolize could be like nasty people in their personal lives. So like, happiness is not something anybody should chase. You need to have a purpose outside of yourself. So if you're going in like, I need to feel this, or I need to have this, or I need to be this, you are setting yourself up for complete misery.
So these women that was getting their tails beat, a lot of them still think like you. And a lot of these women don't even know nothing about this 1994 Act. The women that's voting, they don't even know anything about this 1994 Act. Is people wanting something, and then when they get it, they're not happy with it, and then they have to revoke that idea for something else. And so what you're saying is that women vote for these things because they have the same mentality as you.
Okay. So you're acknowledging that women have the freedom to vote.
Yes.
And you're saying that women are still existing mentally, even with the freedom to vote.
Correct.
They are voting men in because we are still victims of.
No, I ain't said nothing about no victimhood. See, what she was trying to do, she was trying to create an argument that she could feel comfortable debating. So I already saw what she was trying to do when she brought up that victim mess. Now, I'm the type of person, I don't believe in no victimhood. So that was real critical, the fact that you put this victim word in there. No, ma'am, I do not believe in victims. I believe in total uneducation. I believe in ignorance, not victim. I believe in victimhood. I believe in lack of education and lack of knowledge, because one of the things that you also say.
Do you think that it could just be that more men are running for positions of office?
No, not necessarily. Because remember, the United States, the average reading comprehension of people in the United States is 6th grade. So we're not dealing with educated people. Lack of education is the cause for what we see in the world. And if we educate the women better, because a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And if she reading and comprehending at a 6th grade level and popping out a lot of kids, because the brokest people in the world pop out the most kids. So if we have those people voting, of course they're going to vote against their interests, because they're voting for some utopian society that will never exist.
Okay, so that's why you think Kamala lost.
This ain't even about Kamala.
Because you're talking.
Where did Kamala come into play here? Where did Kamala come into this conversation is what I'm trying to figure out. Our conversation is about a matriarchy or a patriarchy. She still has not proven that we live in a matriarchy. Now, why is this critical?
So the whole thing on education, I just want to say that nobody in the United States is really educated if you look at what we should be. And that is because the education system was created to keep us workers. So if we're workers, we're only going to be educated just enough that we clock in every day and accept hourly wages, instead of creating our own business, and instead of learning how money works so that we can actually rise up. They educate us to just know the bare minimal, to like put some data in, to like memorize some facts and reiterate it when needed. Like everything is fake. Education is fake. There's no real education out there. Everybody is barely making it by unless they are self-educated. Self-educated is the only educated, because if you just learn what they tell you to learn, you are a fool. You are an uneducated fool with just some pieces of paper that they told you made you important, but it doesn't. So that's all I have to say about that. Because and women were the ones who were educating their children at home. Just because they didn't have a degree, just because they didn't go to public schools, which are trash, or whatever school systems. No, you had tutors in the community. You had, this mom knows a lot about this subject, and that mom knows about this subject. And, you know, this grandfather that's retired knows about this. And like people would communally educate the kids. But what is happening when you send your children to school is daycare.
Because earlier she said that the CIA, which was a bunch of men, funded the feminist movement, right? They did that. The lawmakers, the rulers, right? The same people who funded that also was a part of the education too. And we know that the American education system ain't worth diggity. And this is connected to how people vote. This goes in direct correlation to how people vote, their level of education. And we dealing with people who read and comprehend at the 6th grade level. So if you're trying to talk about women voting, and the people who funded the feminist movement allowed these women the illusion of freedom and gave them the opportunity to vote with low levels of education.
The illusion of education, the illusion of everything. Everybody has the illusion of, you have the illusion of home ownership, but if you don't pay your taxes, you lose your home. If you don't pay the association fee, you lose your home. Everything is, if you don't pay insurance or whatever, and something happens, you're not even allowed to rebuild your home yourself. You have to do it to like the codes and whatever standards of the city and the government. So does anybody really own anything anymore?
Do you think they have anything to worry about women or how they're going to vote? Do you? They're going to vote based on fear, ideas of a utopia. They'll vote in alignment with whatever they.
Dude, that is how everybody votes, based off fear and ideas for utopia. The men think if they go back to like women having less rights, that they're going to go back to the 40s and 50s, but the economy is not going to go back to the 40s and 50s. So no. And the idea that the women are going to stop working and start marrying the guys again, that's not going to happen. That's fantasy. So all of these things are fantasies. We're all voting for our fantasies when we should really be voting to completely remove all the corrupt politicians and get all of them out and stop allowing them to create laws that go against our ownership of our land rights and our freedoms and stuff like that. But there's too much government, and that is the problem. You can't regulate yourself to freedom.
Husband wants, they're not actually doing no study. And the condition of the mentality of the women is a direct relation to how the system is structured with those who funded the education. So if we lived in a matriarchy, do you think that the matriarchy would stupefy the leaders? The first teacher of the child? Do you think that the matriarchy would stupefy the people that is based on?
I think we're at, Rolo says we're at like at number 46 of the big cases of female teachers who have molested their younger students. So that is the education system that you send your children to. They still can't read.
I'm trying to understand.
women. No, but we had an opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a male running and we had a female running, and we actually showed that Trump increased the amount of women who voted for him, right? So I'm asking you, do you believe that the reason that happened was because women became less educated during that time?
They've always been less educated. Did you know that UNESCO says that that 2/3 of the 7.7 million illiterate adults is women? Illiterate. And we have UNESCO found that 2/3 of adults who are unable to read are women. 2/3. So I'm trying to figure out what you're talking about, Candace. What you talking about, Candace? Education is so important to how people vote, because they don't vote based on policy. They vote based on feelings. They vote based on ego. Grade educated people voting. And guess who? Guess the dominant population is white women. And so guess what? Now you have to add a race element into that, which you already know exists. Because who voted Trump in? White women. White women. Because that wasn't black folks. That wasn't black folks. So now you got to add race in here. You have to add race.
That's wrong. All the black people I know voted for Trump. You guys, come on. This is silly. I have no idea where she's getting these statistics. I mean, I would need to see it broken down, because I don't know any white woman who voted for Trump, and I don't know any black man or woman that voted for. I don't know. It's just like, you guys show me the statistics. This sounds just like,
difference between white women and black women when it comes to voting. Not only do you have to add race in it, now you got to add class. Now you got to add class while you're talking about just straight feminism. You can't talk about straight feminism without talking about race and class. Because we, as black folks, we ain't.
Well, it is true. The higher your class rank as a female, the more feminism makes sense for you, because then you get everything, right? And the men that are in the higher classes, feminism doesn't bother them. If their wife has a little boutique that wastes $10,000-$20,000 a month, that's no bother to them. Versus if their wife is at home with 5 or 6 like nannies or whatever, that doesn't bother them. Because when you're in a certain class level, what your woman does is just for fun, is just for her. And you're like, sure, honey, here's all the rights. It's only the middle and the lower classes where these things have different outcomes, right? So obviously, since the dawn of time, wealthy women had all the power, always. They were like well above middle class anybody.
The dominant people voting people in. Okay, so now when we have to go into white supremacy and feminism, now you have to look at the mind of the people who actually have economic success and what they're voting for, because classism actually matters as well. So I'm sorry, but a lot of people vote based on their feelings and not based on policy.
Pause, guys.
Yes.
Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you for the respectful conversation.
She was confused.
She was confused.
She was confused.
I think
she got up
I gotta
and said that she was confused about my argument. She said she was confused about my argument. Are y'all confused about my argument?
A little bit. A little bit.
I'm just trying to, I'm trying to understand. Are you all confused by my argument? Because I thought I was quite clear. I think that her confusion I believe that her confusion came due to her thinking about feminism and not arguing whether or not we lived in a matriarchy or a patriarchy. The people who funded these movements you talking about were men, ma'am, not women.
Upper class
The people
men.
occupying these government seats are men.
Helped by
not
upper
women.
class women, because they need workers, more workers. They need to double their labor, so they need more hourly workers, cheaper. Double the hourly workers available. Now you get to save more money. I don't understand. Like, this is not very complicated. It's always been about the wealthy people having more resources for lower cost. I mean, this isn't a male versus female. This has always been the the job creators, the wealthy people of the world who have all the money and the resources and that need to hire people versus the people that need to be hired. So if you need to be hired to survive, you're immediately in lower classes. And just because you might have the idea, I'm valuable right now, maybe like they really need something. Like let's say you do something in computers or whatever. So it's very valuable in this moment, right? If you do not create a company that is huge, that you can give down to your legacy, whatever, maybe that job is not worthwhile. So you can even teach it to your kids. It's the people who own all the types of jobs, all the big industry. Those are the real owners of the world. And then these people who are momentarily risen up to like just below, upper class or just upper class enough, but they're hourly or they're salaried people. They think that they've made it, but the difference between making 400,000 or 500,000 to making 400 or 500 million is so intense. They're not even on the same planet, yet they still vote like they're those people, and they're not. But anyways, and then in a couple generations, whatever it is that they did will be replaced by AI anyways. So it's silly. Everything is silly. We need to stop making infrastructure and government bigger. In my opinion, we need to go back. We were happier with little small villages, self-governed little villages. And if somebody came in, yes, we would be a little bit, what's the word? I don't want to say prejudiced or whatever, but like we would be weary of strangers. We are supposed to be weary of strangers. It's like, oh, you're a newcomer. Why were you kicked out of your tribe? Why are you coming into my space? You must be not very good. There must be something wrong. And then if you prove yourself, then you get accepted. And if you don't prove yourself, you get kicked out. That's how it should be. But we're not allowed to like even have our own communities anymore because all the government overreach drains all of our money with taxes and regulations and permitting and zoning laws. You cannot own one piece of land, have a business on the bottom, and your dwelling house on the top. You can't do that. If we could do that, the economic growth that we would have as a nation would be immense. We would be so much better. Everybody would be able to have a family business below. Every neighborhood would have one coffee shop business, one like doctor business, one this, whatever. Everybody would be able to do that. Think of like having, like those townhouse type like places. And then you have the 2 stories above for the family live and the bottom is like an open shop or whatever. That's how we should be building communities. But no, instead, zoning says you're not allowed to do that. You have to have a house an hour and a half away from downtown. Downtown, there are skyscrapers and they're never going to be owned by you. You'll never be able to afford a skyscraper. So you have to rent a little tiny pocket room in this skyscraper or whatever, or this mall or whatever it is. You'll never be able to buy the mall or you'll never buy the huge shopping center. Just rent a little space there. It's constantly going up. You're constantly fighting against all of these fees and regulations and garbage. This is how they keep us poor, segregated, stressed out. And that's the real thing. It's never been feminism, conservatism, men, female. No, it's always the ones who make the rules and the ones who have to do what they say. That's it. And if you want to look into that further, you'll understand that when you commit a crime against one of the fellow slaves, you go to court. If you like somebody who's higher up commits a crime against a slave, they get away with it. That's why they say you can pay your way out of everything if you're rich enough, unless the higher ups don't like you. So Diddy did something they didn't like. That's what I get. Anyways, so that is all for today, you guys. I don't know if you guys learned anything from that reaction. I was kind of hoping she'd have like a better back and forth with Candace. That was like a real missed opportunity, in my opinion, because I do think like they deserve to have like, instead of like letting them run off and say whatever came up and like swerve the conversation, if they just had like specific questions that they had to specifically debate on, I think it would have been so much better. And that's where these short form like debates go wrong, in my opinion. But if we could somehow get them both, maybe we can petition Candace to have her on a previous show or another show in the future. That would be really interesting just to watch, because I think she is very well researched. And then maybe one day we can go and review her and Rabbi Mantis and what they said about men and women and everything, because that's really interesting. And I like that one. Anyways, have a great rest of your day. And thank you all for being here. Like, subscribe, share, blah, 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 blah. Share on X. I need to get stuff out there. And see you all next time. Bye. Oh, wait. Hold on. It didn't end. Oh, here it goes. Bye, guys.
The old gods whisper with tongues of sin. They crawl through culture to pull you in. Don't be for sale, don't wear their grin. The old are rotten, don't let them win. Eyes and nets and mirrored glass. They promised youth, they cursed your past. You drank the lie with ruby lips, but every toast is one more sip.